Well, I don't know. Okay. It says we're live. Man, that guy's just posted. Never play with buttons and settings. Unless you have time to recover from whatever you've changed. Man, oh man, oh man. Hey, good after evening. Good morning, wherever you happen to be in the world. Good after evening. It is ADRAMADA. Another Dave Rush, Ask Me Anything, Digital Alchemy. And I am the aforementioned Dave Rush. This is ADRAMADA. It's a open technology topic show. We get together once a week at 7 p.m. Central Time, Central Standard, Central Daylight, whatever time of the day it happens to be. We talk tech, we talk tech news, we talk projects. I got a project today. Oh, do I have a project today? Man, I'm excited about this one. And we are starting to come into our own. The technology is getting solved. The topics are going to get more interesting. The audience is growing. 2 so far today. But the archive views over the course of the week are approaching my low numbers in the old show, whatever that is. So we're making headway here. Tollywood, thanks for the heads up on the time thing. There's a really weird thing about when you go to schedule YouTube streams, it doesn't really care. The only value seems to be that it provides a timer. When you go and visit the link and click on the screen, and it says, oh, the show's going to start in 11 hours, or the show started 11 hours ago. And of course, it automatically adjusts and compensates for whatever time zone you happen to be in. But as far as what time we actually start streaming, that could be days in advance or days later or right on time. But thanks for the heads up. I did get that fixed about 12 minutes before show start. Once again, muscle memory. Actually, that one was set for 7 a.m. I forgot to adjust for the p.m. And I don't know why. 1080p. Ooh, am I doing 1080p? I have no idea. I messed around with the Endus settings again just before the show started. So let's see who's here. Tollywood was in, then he was out, then he was in, back in, made it on time. There's 2 of us here. I think it's me and you. But that's all right. We will, you know what, if I knew how, I would make you a moderator right now. Let's see if I can figure that out here. Before we go to channel, user in timeout. Put user in timeout right now. How about add as managing moderator? Tollywood, you are now a moderator for this channel. Did your wrench turn up right away, or do I have to redo the whole... Actually, I got to redo the whole thing anyways because I don't have it on live chat. Hey, look at that. You got a wrench. You're wrenched. Sound is just on the left side today. Yeah, I was fighting with that. I'm looking at the view meter. Eddie's here. I can bump this a little bit. Bump, 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 bump. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. I was there. That's too much. That whole thing went red. All right. That's as high as I'm going to go. Is that a problem? Am I too boomy? Or am I too quiet? I can adjust a little bit. But there's just not much left. Well, what is it? So Eddie just mentioned that tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. You are off for St. Patrick's Day. Well, with a fine name like Eddie, you should be off on St. Patrick's Day. I love that we celebrate St. Patrick's Day here in the U.S. I don't know where everybody in the world is right now. I was in England during St. Patty's Day some years ago, and we were in London. I went down to Soho for a little fish and chips and celebrate St. Patty's Day with all of the other celebrants. They were clueless. They had no idea. Now, I know it's not Ireland, but it is just across the street, and I thought there'd be just, thank you, Tellwood, for the sound, just a little bit of recognition. Maybe there would have been more if I'd gone up to Ireland, though I've heard there isn't. It's not a big deal up there. In fact, in the U.S. in general, it's not that big of a deal. It's noted and it's important, but take America and then start squeezing it down until you get to Boston, and then the whole place is the Emerald Isle. You got some big St. Patty's Day celebrations here, as well. There should be all the Irish immigrants to Hawaii, but I'm learning to say Hawaii right. We have a retro television station here. I think up until about a year ago, yeah, there were two television series in my mind that are associated with Hawaii. Hawaii Five-0 and Magnum, right? Well, the Irish built America. That's a fact. That is a stone cold fact. There was another one. There was a private eye show in the 60s called Hawaiian Eye. I run across this on this retro channel every now and again. And it starred Robert Conrad from Baa Black Sheep and Wild Wild West and whatever. So, wow, cool. I know I'm just talking to two people, but, I'm talking to 80, 90, a couple hundred people over the course of the week and more over the year. And I've got to stop putting these notices out on LinkedIn and my other social media a week in advance. People forget. I need to start doing them in such a time that they aren't so forgetful about it. The little town I grew up in was you grew up in New Jersey. There's a huge Irish contingent there. Anyways, little town I grew up was about half Irish. The other half was about half Italian. The rest of us were the last 10%. Okay. Yeah, in Jersey. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, the New York, New Jersey, the whole northeast megalopolis as a large Irish population. And I enjoyed living up there, not just necessarily because of the Irish, but they were fun too. You look to Boston, you see Patrick Leahy and Tip O'Neill and all those other fine, upstanding Irish politicians. I have, in my liquor cabinet, you guys know I barely drink, but I did take some time over COVID to try to learn a little bit about bourbon and whiskey. And then, so I spent almost 2 years every now and again sampling whiskeys and comparing them. And I do have a favorite by far and away. And they were, we spent 2 years working on bourbon, actually. So I'm done working through bourbon. I know what I like. I know things that I don't like as much. And so we cleared out the liquor cabinets, gave it to the children on the street on Halloween, and reloaded them up with moderate and higher end Irish whiskeys. And I haven't touched any of it yet. It's been 6 or 7 months since they've been in the cabinets. And I have this problem. I need an occasion for me to crack something open, even a beer. And I just haven't had an occasion to get out and start tasting. Though I have a friend who introduced me to what is absolutely, until I go through this stuff and see if I find something better, my favorite Irish whiskey, Tullamore Dew, 17-year-old. Ugh. I got company in town for the month. I didn't mention much of that last time. Ooh, I feel an echo coming in here. Let's back this down. I'll keep the mic volume up and just turning my internal earphones off. My mother-in-law and some of my wife's siblings were here. My mother-in-law is still here. The sibs have gone back to work as they should, and mother-in-law has been here for it'll be a month when she bails out on Tuesday, and then the wife is going home with her for a week. I'll be back alone. There was a point to all that, and I've completely lost it. Oh, well. All right, let's see what's cooking here. So, all right, so let's check the news and information and get through some of this stuff, because I got a project and I want to do the project, but other news and things have popped up along the way. They're going to take a little more time. So I was starting with this all to recognize, as Eddie said, sampling whiskey now. Good for you, my friend. Look up the Westies sometime. They have ties to Keensburg, an Irish mob gang. Okay. That's almost a non sequitur. Anyways, dates. So this is March 16th. If you're watching not in real time, I'm filming this March 16th, recording it. 2 days ago, therefore, was March 14th, Pi Day. So should I wear a pie shirt? No. And I mean, I went through throes this week trying to figure out what shirt to wear for this show because I got cool things going on. And all right, so yesterday, of course, the Ides of March. Today, nothing special. Tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day. And that's all the big news. So 2 years ago today was Pi Day. It was real Pi Day when I did a show, and I did a show with Rocky Linux. And I didn't plan this to coincide with that. I picked a show and a topic and said, okay, I'm going to do a topic and let's do it on Rocky for fun. And then I was going back looking through notes, trying to see some things I'd done with Rocky, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was 2 years ago to the day. So I got this massive collection now of Linux distro shirts. And my first show of the year, the first show of this series, I wore a Rocky Linux shirt, and I thought, well, I can't do that. This is just, I've only got 3 shows under the belt. Can't repeat that quickly. But we are paying homage to Rocky because the 2-year anniversary of doing a Rocky lab and because we're using Rocky tonight. And it's close enough to Pi Day, so cool bananas and beans. Don't care about that. Don't care about that. Tech news of the week. This is just headlines. There's not enough of us to have a real conversation here. You grew up in Keensburg. Well, that explains it. There were 2 pieces of interesting tech news over the last week or so. One of them, some organization does an annual GitHub analysis. And what they found in this most recent analysis this past year, there's the hiccups, we're normal, 10 million secrets were posted in GitHub in commits. Now, what that means, a secret is, not a corporate secret, something like that. It's a key that is used to access resources. Maybe a web developer says, okay, we're gonna make this key secure with HTTPS, and so they're taking the private key or public key, something like that. Those are the secrets, and they're actually posting them right there in a publicly available GitHub. 10 million of them over the last year. That's up 20%. There was only 8 million the year before. Folks, we are giving it away. If we care about security, if we want to talk about security and how hard we work on maintaining good security, we're not. And developers, right? People who should know this. If you're hanging on GitHub, you're probably a developer or a hangers-on or something like that. And wow. Associated with that, ChatGPT. Now we know that it burst onto the scene 3 months ago or so. Obviously, it was running with less popularity and less knowledge prior to that, but here we are. And a survey, a review of ChatGPT conversations show this is a small sounding number, but it's growing, and as big as chat is, while the percentage here is low, this percentage represents a huge number. More than 4% of company employees who have used ChatGPT for any purpose, personal purpose, corporate purpose, whatever, have provided to ChatGPT corporate sensitive data. So here again, we're just giving it away. Giving it away. It's horrific. So keep an eye on this. This is not going to get smaller, and chat isn't going to say, oh, is that a corporate secret? Hang on, let me erase that from my banks. It ain't going to happen. Other news, GIMP, right? The graphics IM manipulator program, whatever it is. I never remember the name. Only if I'm going to do a show on GIMP, then I'll take the time to memorize it. Anyways, I'm running GIMP. I have been a GIMP user since I first discovered it, and since the Adobe image editing products became not free. So, okay, give me GIMP, because I'm the world's cheapest human. So I'm have been running for the last year or so, year and a half, version 2.10.32. GIMP 3.0 is coming out. It's been big news for a long time in GIMP circles, and the goodies that they're adding, and it's going to be powerful and it's going to be flexible and everybody wants the new features in 3.0, but it's not ready to release. So the nice folks at GIMP.org said, tell you what, we're going to take out, not remove, but take some of the cool features that people are really clamoring for, and we will incorporate them into an upgraded version of the current GIMP. So we'll do a new version with some of the features that are supposed to not be released until GIMP 3.0. They call that process backporting, when you take content from new versions and add it back into previous versions or prequel versions. You are backporting. So they have backported some of the really amazing features. And so again, as I'm running 2.10.32, this new backported version is 2.10.34. And you bet, as soon as I found that they had done that backport, I did the upgrade. And I found something very interesting. When you update GIMP, it doesn't update it. It installs another version of it. So I got both versions, 2.10.32 and 2.10.34, running, and I don't know what to do. There are some things that I've added to my existing version that I don't know if they're going to shine and work and integrate with the new version. I haven't started that testing yet. I want to get rid of the old one. I don't need that to suck up all that space. But it's an interesting concept. So be on the lookout if you're playing around in graphics world. GIMP 3 is coming, and there is a backport of some of the really cool features. Hey, Jason Helms is here. Hello, sir. Cool. How are we doing here on time here? Okay, we got 43 minutes left. I think we can do everything in that. I got to tell you about a project. Next topic, upcoming and current projects. Trying to figure out how to introduce this. I'm working better now. I'm working from notes, not scripts. So I don't read my stuff to you anymore. Yay, mostly. So as you may know, did I mention this last week? I'm feeling like I said all this stuff, unless I've already said it to my wife. Bottom line, a new version of Raspberry Pi Imager came out a little over a week ago, and I realized when I ran this that I get excited when new versions come out, because every time new versions come out, they include in the selection menus different distros and images. So you don't have to go necessarily and download an image and then use Balena Etcher or Win32 Write or whatever. Hey, I can use the Raspberry Pi Imager. The distros that I want are selectable here. I click it, and it goes out, reaches out, gets the image for me, downloads it, and then burns it to the micro SD card. And I came to realize that I get very excited every time the Imager comes out, because there is images that I want to see. Specific ones. I want to see the rocky ones. And so I fired it up and I looked in it on the new one, and they weren't there again. And I went down the rabbit hole. I said, wait a minute. This has to happen somehow. Raspberry Pi has a GitHub with developers working on all kinds of different products and projects, from the main operating system to features and functions and add-ons like the Raspberry Pi Imager. So I thought, I'll go take a look over there. I don't have a GitHub account. All right, well, there's my reason finally to go get a GitHub account. And so I went over and started doing a little bit of research in that forum. And then I went over to the Rocky Pi dev forum. and started looking in there. And I started asking questions. Hey, I started on the Rocky forum. Is anybody working on getting the Rocky images into the Raspberry Pi? Crickets. I said, well, tell you what, here's where it happens, and here's where you guys work. I propose that somebody do this. I'm not a developer. I'm not a coder. I have no idea what to do here. So I have nothing to offer other than this brilliant idea. Somebody wrote back, a senior developer that I know, wrote and said, hey, is that the thing where it... okay, so yeah, I'm key now that you are at least not keenly wrapped up in this thing. And so, yeah, I explained, yeah, this is what their imager is and what I just said to you. And he posted on the GitHub, anybody's interested, Patricia Grace. Yes, Patricia, I have tonight made a moderator. Tulowit, not surprising. He's been here forever. You two shall be the other thing we got going on. I think it's all just you guys. I could probably talk about it, but hang on. At any rate, so this senior dev says, hey, if anybody wants to spearhead this project, I don't have much time, but you can get it started and we'll go from there. Crickets. So I thought, well, look, again, I don't have any coding capability, but I am a heck of a manager and an orchestrator. I'll get things started. So I got things started. And after some days of work and effort and learning and realizing my limitations, I knew them before I went in, I wasn't getting any useful support. Now, there was a guy, it turns out he was giving useful support, but I'm too dumb to recognize it. So yesterday I threw a temper tantrum and said, nobody seems to be interested in this. Nobody's offering me help. I abandon the mantle of this project. If somebody wants it, knock yourself out. Well, that's like clock pulses. That got things moving hard and fast. And today I apologized and reassumed my micro mantle of the thing. But a couple of the devs over there just put an all-out effort into doing some of the things that need to be done. And I think we are probably 80% there. So expect to see Rocky images sooner or later incorporated into the Raspberry Pi imager. And no credit to myself. All I did was come up with the idea and say somebody ought to do this. But I am participatory at least, and it finally got me involved in a true GitHub projecto. All shall love me and despair. Nice. Good quote. That came from someplace else too, because as she was saying that the first time I saw the movie, I knew that line in advance. Somebody was here and left. No, you can't leave. Okay. So, cool. There's upcoming and current projects, number one. Number two, in the process of doing this, I found another distro that works on Raspberry Pi that is going through the same throes. They've got a Pi image, it turns out, and they're trying to get their thing in, and they're getting it looks stonewalled by the Raspberry Pi folks, and I'm sure that's where we're going to wind up getting stopped as well, because his work led me to believe that I could actually do some of this, but smarter people than I, fortunately, have picked up that spear and have handled it. But it's the Parrot Security OS, parrotsec.org. And it is a very strong alternative to Kali Linux. Let's try something here. Let's bring up the Parrot image. Hey, look at that. So this is Parrot Security operating system running on a Raspberry Pi. Yay! And I put it on at midnight last night. I should go to bed. No, wait, I've been thinking about Parrot for 2 days. Let's burn one and get it going. So burned it the old-fashioned way, and you can see I took a screenshot while I was doing updates and upgrades. But cool, I played with it. It's got all of the stuff that Kali does. A few more. Kali's got a few more here and there too. There are some notable differences, and I'm not going to cover them all for you here and now. But that's a show. We're going to do a Parrot OS show. maybe I'll do Parrot versus Kali. And there's another one, Backbox. All right, back to webcam, move that up. This we can move up and get prepped for the next thing. Cool. I'm learning to use this thing. We're getting there. So Parrot Sec OS. And again, it should be parrotsec.org or something like that. You can look it up and download the image. It's very, very cool from the limited amount of time I've had to play with it so far. One of the things that really makes them different is Kali is built on a standard Debian kernel. Parrot does a totally custom, but still based on Debian kernel. Lots of really cool apps that go above and beyond hacking and pen testing and things like that. And a much smaller use of RAM. It only takes 320 megs of RAM to install Parrot OS and all those things, and disk space too. It's good stuff. So definitely got to be explored here. All right, I got to tell you about one other piece of technology that I had to encounter. It was last night. Last night I had installed Parrot. I took a screenshot of it, saved it to some directory in the Parrot OS system, and then went back to Windows because I wanted to suck it into a Windows machine. I'm still broadcasting off of my Win machine, and did what I always do. I use the SCP utility all the time. I'm good with it. Okay, I know all the cool switches, and so I ran it, and it choked. And it choked because of something that Windows does. When you use the Windows Secure Shell utility and you connect to some host, two things happen. One, Secure Shell says, okay, the IP address for that is 192.168.1.1. And it gets a fingerprint from the operating system and some other factoids in that host. And it saves those two pieces of information to a file in the Windows machine, in a file called known hosts. And now next time I SSH into that thing, it checks the database and says, I don't have to add it. It's already in there. 1.1 is in there. And then it compares the fingerprint against the host that I'm connecting to. And if it's a match, okay, cool, you're SSH'd. Same thing happens with SCP. But I have this one Raspberry Pi that I change up all the time, right? It's running MixPi, it's running Ubuntu, it's running Raspbian, Raspberry Pi OS, it's running Parrot, it's running Rocky. And every time I change that, the fingerprint changes, and I can no longer SSH to it. The only way to do that is for me to go into the known hosts file, delete the entry with that IP address, and then connect to it and make it learn the new thing. What a pain that is. And so I solved that problem by not using Microsoft's SSH utility when I don't have to. And so I use PuTTY. Cool. PuTTY bypasses known host. It looks in there and says, hey, this is a mismatch. Do you know what you're doing? Do you want to continue? Yes, I do. And yes, I do. Okay, cool. I can use PuTTY. Well, I ran into the same problem then with SCP. SCP looks in, it's a Microsoft utility. It looks in the known host file. It says, hey, the machine you're trying to connect to mismatches the fingerprint. I'm not going to allow you to connect. So I brainstormed that for a long time. There's a million solutions, but I wanted the fastest to implement solution. Right? So I could have made an FTP server or a Samba server. I tried to SCP from there back to here, and I don't know their firewall system yet, so I think that's part of the problem. But so I went online and started looking, and there was these complicated programs, and download this and smack this. But then I found the Panacea program. PuTTY has a command line version of SCP, their own thing. It looks and works and acts just like SCP, except like the PuTTY SSH utility, it can bypass or ignore the contents of the known hosts file. So that was about a 30-second download. There's no configuration on it. Instead of running SCP, you run PSCP, right? PuTTY SCP, secure copy. And it asks you the usual question. Hey, this is a mismatch. You want to keep going? Yeah, I really do. Okay. And Love it. PSCP for when you're having problems with SCP authenticating to mismatched fingerprint host. Magic. All right, I want to show you how we doing here. 30, right on the half hour. I got time to show you one quickie little utility. Should I show you SCP, PSCP? Yeah, why not? Where am I? Nah, I didn't set up the plan to do it, so I can't do it. But I do want to show you one other thing. It's an old utility. It's an information gathering utility about Linux boxes that runs from the command line, and it gathers some very specific piece of information. It's called NeoFetch. And let me entertain you. There we go. So here's an SSH connection to a Rocky server. And I don't have NeoFetch installed in here. I can tell that because if I type NeoFetch, it says ain't no command called NeoFetch in this house. So I'm going to install it and show you what it does. So we'll sudo apt. Oh, wait a minute. This is Rocky. I got a DNF. Sudo DNF install NeoFetch. I haven't actually tried this on Rocky. I did this on Raspberry Pis, so I don't know if this is going to work. Please tell me NeoFetch is there. Okay, yes, it's there. 54 megs. And then 186 megs. And then we'll give it a run. I don't know if there's command line switches to it and it gives you more or less information, but here's what it does. It's really cool, and it's just a nice little semi-graphical. Oh yes, we got to have the GPG keys. Fine, because we're using EPEL. It's a Rocky thing. If you're doing this on your Debian-based distro, your Raspberry Pi OS, your Ubuntu's, your things like that, it's a real quick install. Sudo apt install NeoFetch. Goodness gracious. Oh yeah, I remember seeing this before. If you look over here at the count that's going on, it's going to pause, or it did pause one time on one of these numbers before it got to 106. Maybe I'm thinking wrong. Maybe there was some other program that I installed lately and had a long pause. Come on, 3, 4. Love when they do that. All you got to do is step 106. So we're going to do step 106 47 times. All right, so clear. And let's run NeoFetch. All right, so this is really cool. It always does some lovely, colorful little graphic about the operating system that you're running. And then here's the details on that operating system. Cool. And then it does a color bar test down here. All of this done within the command line. Now let me bring myself back to head, because I'm going to connect to a Raspberry Pi and show you the difference here. And then I'm going to do it to an Ubuntu box. The whole thing takes just a couple of seconds. So dive out of that, run putty, and we'll connect to the Ubuntu box. I guess I'll just do just the box. I won't bother to hook up to a Raspberry Pi. What's my Ubuntu box? NUC 10i7fnh.local. Take your time. There it comes. And the password is this. All right, so it should be now that if I bring putty back up on here. Hey, there we are. Okay, so there's a new SSH session. And I think I already have NeoFetch installed in this one. Yeah, there we go. So there's the Ubuntu symbol done in Ubuntu colors, orange and white. They do it textually with letters. There's the same color bar. And here we are running Ubuntu 2204.2. It's on an x86 machine, not ARM. You get the idea. Nice little utility. Sudo apt install NeoFetch. It's a good tester. It gives you good summary information. Love this baby. Running an i7 here, 12 cores. It's actually 6 cores, each with 2 hyperthreads, running almost 5 gigahertz. Nice box. Okay, back to head. Let me go prep the project. Close that, run putty, and get reset back up with Rocky. I closed a browser with 93 tabs just before the show to free up memory. All right, let's talk project. Actually, let's see if anybody else has turned up here and who's posting what, and then we'll get into project here. Okay, we got people. Oh, people are here. Hey, more and more. So close. Let's talk about pie. I'm wanting an apple pie. Oh, man, I haven't had an apple pie in 2 years plus. I miss them. Eddie's got maybe a random question, but what coding language would you recommend learning? I just finished Net Plus and starting Sec Plus, but want to learn a bit of coding. Okay, so let's break coding down into 2 flavors, scripting and programming or coding. So there are 3 scripting languages that matter in the world. Let's make it 2. PowerShell, scripting language. We'll go with 3. Bash scripting. Now they're powerful. They're big. They're useful. You can do wonderful things with them. And there is a market for people with those skills, but not as a standalone skill. You're not going to knock on somebody's door and say, I'm a bash coder. I can write really awesome, amazing, creative bash scripts. That's something that you add to your other skill set to make you more marketable. The same is true for PowerShell. I'm a PowerShell programmer. Good. What else do you know about Windows Server or Windows Management or Windows or whatever? In fact, PowerShell is available in Linux now. So that's a coupling one. So as a programming language, the number 1 scripting programming language out there, and the one that we always recommend to first-time coders, Python. Okay, Python runs the world as a scripting language. If you want to get out of scripting languages and get into core guts level programming, C++. But Python will get you in any door, anywhere. You learn Python, you've learned so many programming fundamentals that it's a fairly easy shift to move to a compiled language like C or Rust or Go or whatever. JavaScript would be a second strong one. You can walk in with those credentials. I am a Python coder. And if you know your Python well, there's a position for you. There we go. I didn't even look at I do the same thing that my friend does. Read the question and don't bother to look and see if anybody else has already answered it 10 times. Tuluit, Python. For file transfer, I know. SFTP. Right, so I would have had to set up an SFTP server. That would have worked. If I tried SFTP, the client that's built into Microsoft would have had the same problem. It still uses the known hosts file. Okay, Eddie's thinking Python as well. So we're all in agreement. Eddie, go pursue Python, and blessings upon you. Patricia Grace, are you wanting to build web apps, learn software? Right, so there's an argument that says you might want to learn some HTML or PHP. That's useful. We did a show last year in December, I think, of 22, where we installed a ticketing system, OS Ticket. The entire thing, this is incredible, amazing, massive, fantastic, wonderful program called OS Ticket, and it's created entirely in PHP. So that's magic. That's bloody magic. And that makes it agnostic, because every system that can run a website pretty much can run PHP. All you need is an appropriate version of a SQL database. Explaining computer channel also has video of alternatives, Eddie, other videos, GPIO functionality. Yep, very good. Trisha Grace, he's in UK, so availability price. You're in UK. Eddie, I didn't know that, but that makes sense. I think I got an inference up there earlier. He's just across the street from Andre. Somebody wake up Andre and get his butt on the show here. Eddie says, I have a curious personality and I want to know everything. Outstanding. I think you are among friends here. Everybody here is in that same boat. We are all desperately curious. When it comes to coding, I'm open to everything. My background is in security, so I'm wanting to get familiar with a universal language. You're on it. Music is the universal language. Wrench. All right, bueno. Back to project then with 20 minutes to do it. I can do this in 20 minutes. So we're going to talk about a product called Apptainer. Not surprisingly, it's a container technology, and it exists to solve a problem. And the problem is this. The big container technologies that we all know and love, I've done a show on it in the past, I think last April of 22, something like that, is Docker, right? The Docker container system. When you use Docker and you have no other experience with any other containers, it's great. It's wonderful. And then somebody points out, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? Maybe you don't care about the what about this, and maybe you don't care about the what about that. Maybe you do. So I'm going to give you two for instances here, in fact 3. In order to install Docker, you need supervisor privileges. Sudo apt install Docker. Then to launch a container, you need sudo privileges. Sudo docker blah 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 blah. And then inside the Docker container, unless you do heavy magic, there's a supervisor account running the code within the container. And so we want people to avoid using supervisor accounts. It is through supervisory administrator accounts. This is true in Windows, this is true in Linux, this is true in Mac, and everything else. That's how malware transports itself. I will use the files that are being used by the administrator, and therefore I can use those administrator powers to infect or to execute or whatever. So wouldn't it be cool if there was a container technology that doesn't need sudo or supervisor to install it, to execute it, or to run the program within it? Yes, it would be cool. And that product right now is called Apptainer. And so I'm just going to launch right into it for the time purposes. We call this a rootless container system. And what's really, really wonderful about it is it uses native Docker containers. So you don't have to make any special new containers. You can use the same old containers that you've always used with Docker. We go to Docker Hub and we pick one, we find one, and we're off and running. We're just going to use Apptainer to do it. All right, I'm not going through all that. Great container solution and RAM horsepower. So if you don't need a full fat container, Apptainer is very lean. It doesn't have every feature that Docker does. Apptainer will run on all the common Linux distros and platforms. And again, I just picked one at random here, semi-random. I guess I had some rationale for picking this, but okay, because the first time it was ever demonstrated to me, it was demonstrated on Rocky, but Rocky running on an x86 platform. So I immediately fired up my Rocky on Pi and duplicated the demonstration that I saw and said, woohoo, runs exactly the same on a Pi as it does on x86. So there's some wonderful stuff. I've done Rocky shows in the past, but it's not part of ADRAMADA. I'm not going to do a presentation on Rocky here today. Know that I'm a fan, right? I'm working with them. So what do you need? You need a Raspberry Pi. 3 or 4 is fine. You can probably do it. No, you can't do it with a 2. You need a micro SD card. If we're just doing demo and practice, a 16 gig card is fine. Bigger is better. Power supply enclosure, optional keyboard, monitor, and HDMI cable. You don't need those things because Rocky, if you're going to do it on Rocky, It has built-in SSH server, a daemon. And if the box that you're going to do this on has SSH support for it, then you don't need monitors and keyboards. Just connect to it with an SSH connection. Otherwise, you're going to need traditional stuff until you can set that stuff up. Makes sense? And you're going to need an internet connection because we're going to get software we're going to get a container from the Docker Hub, and we've got to get the application. All right, so I ran through this whole thing about how to download and install Rocky, and I'm not doing any of that nonsense. I want to get straight into this. These will be this next week. I am devoting 2 days to working on the ADRAMADA website, and I will get our 4 shows that we'll have in the can after tonight in there as downloadable. You can download these scripts and processes and procedures and things like that. Or you can watch the show and take notes. That's what I did when I first watched it. Buzz, buzz, grind, grind, boot it up. No work to finish except expand your file system and do an update upgrade. Okay, so we've installed Rocky. Let me put you back over on Putty with me. And after you install Rocky, if you feel like checking it out, you can do that with, whoops. Hostname control. Okay, so Rocky's installed. It's got a transient host name. It's Rocky Linux 8.7. I installed this as 8.5, and then I upgraded it to 8.7. 8.7 is natively downloadable, as is 9. I wanted to do it on the old version to make sure it could happen. And note, here's the critical part. This is on ARM platform 64-bit. There's some other things that we can do to check that out, but I'm fine. I'm good with that. After we've installed it, there's something you have to do on the Rocky for Raspberry Pi. I've already done this, but you'll run sudo root fs expand. And it'll expand the file system to take up your whole card, and you'll have to reboot after that. It will reboot. Do a DNF update and upgrade. All right, now we're done. Goodness gracious. You don't have to do anything else. All you need is a basic Rocky install to do today's labs. But of course, a basic install is probably going to be a little incomplete. You're going to want to add some other pieces to it. And if and when you download my scripts next week, you can see some things that I added to this thing. One of the things that, okay, so we're ready to start the project now. And I've already done some of this, but I want you to see it. So this is Rocky. This is a Red Hat lineage distro. It's a downstream distro of Red Hat. And therefore, we don't use apt to install things. We use DNF. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install a program that's necessary for this. And this is the only time we're going to need sudo. And the program is just a program that has nothing to do with running the container. It's just something we got to have because we're going to steal some stuff. So we're going to say sudo DNF install git. And if you want, you can hit the enter key and let it prompt you for yes or no, or you can say, don't prompt me for yes or no. The answer is yes, I want to do it. Bam. Give me the password. Okay. Rocky Linux. That's the default password for the Raspberry Pi install. Okay, so it's already installed. It doesn't take much. It takes a minute or two to install, and there you go. To test the install of Git after you've done it, you type in which Git. And what you're looking for is this path. Whack user, whack bin, whack Git. If you get that, Git is installed successfully, as long as there's no error messages during the installation itself. Cool, I got Git. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're in our own home directory. I can just do that with CD. And notice that the prompt on Rocky doesn't show you the path that you're in. So if you're not sure you're in the right place, print working directory or present working directory. So I'm in home, Rocky. My account name is Rocky. Great. all I want to do now is I want to make a little folder here, make a directory. If we look in this folder, the only thing that's in here is a README file and a script file for fixing Raspberry Pi Wi-Fi stuff. So I'm going to start by creating a directory, make dir temp. Okay, there. Now we got a temp directory, and I'm going to go into it, cd temp. And now I'm going to use that git command to copy down the entire Git repository of Apptainer. It's quick, it's painless. Off we go, buzz, buzz, buzz. So we said git clone, and then here's the path to the Apptainer repository. You'll see this all the time, by the way. Apptainer, Rocky, something that they have to do from a practical standpoint. All right, you can see that went super quick. And if we do an ls, the only thing that's under there right now looks like Apptainer, but if I do ls Apptainer, okay, we got lots of stuff that got downloaded there. Time check, 9 minutes to go, no problem, this is almost done. So we're going to go into a folder here, cd Apptainer tools. And there's a couple things in there. And I got to make another folder structure off my home directory before I do what I'm about to do. So I'm going to do another make dir. And I'm going to make a couple of directories off of my home directory, which we shortcut with the tilde symbol. Oops, minus PV. I'll show you what that does in a second here. Minus PV, and then where tilde Apptainer whack 1.1.5. So what's going to happen here, because of this PV, it's going to create a folder in my home directory called Apptainer, and then it's going to create a folder in the Apptainer directory called 1.1.5. That's what PV did for me. Enter, buzz, buzz, grind, grind. Hey, I made an Apptainer folder, and in the Apptainer folder, I made 1.1.5, and you can see that they were both placed appropriately underneath my home folder. Nice, we're almost done. All right. We haven't used sudo for anything except downloading Git, right? Here we go again. There is a hidden folder under here with a program in it, and I'm going to run it. .whack install dash. I'm sorry, that's not hidden. .whack. That means run it as a bash script. So that's this thing. I'm going to .whack run this thing as a bash script, and then there's a couple of switches that I need to put after that. So I'm going to install unprivileged.sh -v, the version 1.1.5, and I'm going to install it in the directory that I just created. So this isn't going into bin or user bin or Etsy or any of that other stuff. It's going in a manual directory that I just created, and that's why I don't need sudo. All right, where are we going here? I got to copy this in right. Apptainer 1.1.5. And if I haven't typoed that, here goes the installation program. It's not griping that I sent it to an illegal place. As soon as this is done, just takes a couple of seconds, we're actually done. The program is installed and ready to run, but it's got a problem. In fact, it has two. One, you have to go into that directory to run the program. So I don't want to do that. I want to set up so that I can run it from anywhere in the system. And the way I'm going to do that first is with a temporary method. All I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the following command. And I'll explain it. You gotta stop doing that, Windows. I hate you. So we're going to say export path, and that means the contents of this thing to the list of directories that Rocky looks into to find a command whenever you type something. So like when I typed which git earlier, it had to go find the which command, and it looks in a list, in a variable list called path that says, I'm going to look here in this folder for which. And if I don't find it there, I'm going to look in this folder, and so on until I run out of folders to look in, or until I find, what do we run, which git, until I find git. So this is going to take this path, home directory, Apptainer 115, whack bin, and it's going to add it to the existing path variable. Don't have to understand all that. Type the command and it works. And here's how I can show you what just happened. Echo $, path is all uppercase, variables are case sensitive, and it added it to the beginning of the list. Anytime I run a program right now, like echo, the first thing he did is he said, I'm going to look in home Rocky Apptainer 1.1.5 whack bin and look for the echo command. Didn't find it there. Okay, I'll look in home Rocky.local bin. And it's going to keep looking in all of these locations. You see they're separated by colons until it finds echo. All right. So now I can run my Apptainer anywhere. Still haven't used the sudo command. So now we test and make sure that the installation works and that path command works. To do that, all you got to do is type Apptainer. And you don't have to be in the directory where it is. And the fact that it came up and said, this is how you use Apptainer, is my answer that tells me it's installed, it's working, and that it was able to find it in the path. Cool. Okay, that's it. It's installed. It's ready. We're going to run a Docker creator, a Docker container from the Docker hub. And since I'm working in the command line, I had to find one that would work in Raspberry Pi or in ARM architecture and was a command line one. And there's a very popular program out there called lolcow, L-O-L-C-O-W. And there's all kinds of lolcows. Some lolcows, when you run them, they spit out a daily joke or a daily one-liner. The one that I'm going to use spits out the time and date. It doesn't run like a continuous graphical program, but you could launch a graphical program here. You could launch a full-fledged knock yourself out program. So I already know this path for the thing that I want. And so I'm going to tell Apptainer to go out to Docker Hub, find this thing that I already know where it is, and I've programmed it. So I'm going to say, Apptainer, I want you to run a container from the Docker Hub in a repository called Syllabcio, and the program to run in that Docker container is lolcow. And a couple things are going to happen the first time you ever run a Docker container. It has to create a CIF file. Oh, it used the cache. I didn't clean out my CIF file from last time. There's my lolcow. It ran in the container and then it finished, so it closed the container. If it was one that ran continuously, we would just see the continuous program in here. Look what happened. We installed Apptainer without sudo. We just did a git clone. We launched Apptainer without sudo. We said Apptainer and run Docker, whatever the Docker container is, and you'll just have to take my word for it that internally, if this were real Docker, lolcow, the program, would be using sudo inside the container. But it didn't, because Apptainer says, you don't have to do that, and I'm not going to do that unless you make me. Folks, that's a rootless container called Apptainer. It's amazing, it's wonderful, it's powerful. Let me get back on camera here, just for hoots. Hey, there's me. All right, I know it's time to go. I'm going to check and see if there's any last comentos. See, I speak Spanish. And then we'll close this thing down for the night. I can't do hour shows, but I won't run long here. What do we? Oh, heck, I got 16 seconds. There's enough time to do this and do a close. Sweet. I'm not going to run long here. Following your footsteps, Eddie. Oh gosh, don't do that. You'll just wind up with mud on your shoes. Jason says, I think if you want to at me, it's at David Space Rush, I think, unless I'm DRushTX. I don't know what I am here. My highlight says David Rush, so try at David and see if that feeds you. Anyways, random off-the-wall question. Have you posted about the show on LinkedIn? I have. I posted this show Friday of last week, which meant it was up for 6 days. So that was too much time for people to forget. So I will get more. I will post closer to show days, and I will include it on my other social media platforms that are growing now. Eddie, would Rocky be a good platform for my Sec Plus studies? No. Rocky's a great platform. It's a Red Hat derivative for everything that you need to know. Well, look, you don't need to know anything about Linux for Sec Plus. Nothing. Literally nothing. There's no commands in there for Sec Plus. There's no reference. So no, nothing. The only thing in the trifecta that you got to know for Linux would come from Debian distros. So do a Raspberry Pi OS, do a Kali, do an Ubuntu, but Rocky is not good for that. Now, if and when you want to go play LPI, LPIC 1 and LPIC 2, or CompTIA's Network Plus, Linux Plus, for that you want 2 distros to play with, a Debian distro and a Red Hat distro. This is what I used for my Red Hat distro when I was studying for both of those certifications. You got Git or you get got. That's what I get. Hanging out with Tullowit, huh? Jason Helms, I'm on the phone. That's why. Okay. All right, that's it. We got a show in the can. Best technical show and okayest content show so far of ADRAMADA. So much more to come. It's going to get better. It's going to get more fun. What we do here, summary, we installed Apptainer program without root privileges. We ran Apptainer with no options or flags without root privileges. We launched Apptainer with a program running in the container without root privileges. Next week, I don't know, debating. I got something on my head here, but I'm feeling good about show content. I think I might be able to do something more interesting than this. So I don't know. You'll see on the announcements on Discord and on LinkedIn and wherever, Reddit, wherever else I'm playing. So with that, we're going to close things down for what is for me the evening. And I wish you all the best of the rest of the week and a great weekend. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy. If at all possible, call or visit your parents. And never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, good night. I'll see you at Mike's shows next week. They're both Mike for the moment. And this show, ADRAMADA, same time, same bat channel next week. And until then, I am out of here. Oops, I hit the wrong button.